Welcome to NLTV. Tonight, we begin with a special tribute to Rabbi Lord Sacks, Zichrono Livracha.
His name was Jonathan Sacks. We are so proud to have had him as our chief rabbi.
Good morning. Very sadly, yesterday afternoon we laid to his eternal rest my illustrious predecessor, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, whom I had the privilege of working with for the past 30 years. He had a distinctive, familiar voice. It was a voice of clarity and erudition, a voice of hope and promise, a voice of tolerance and love, a voice of warmth and wisdom interlaced with sensitivity and humor, a voice that will be profoundly missed by Thoughtful the Day listeners, by Jewish communities around the world, and by all those right across the globe who found in him an invaluable guide who inspired faithfulness, moderation, and compassion. The pain of his loss has been felt far and wide. The world will not be the same without the voice of Rabbi Sacks. Every year, coinciding with the anniversary of the death of Moses, we read the portion of the Bible which describes how he oversaw the building of the sanctuary, a home for God. Yet, astonishingly, his name is entirely absent from the text. God goes out of his way not to address Moses by name, even whilst he embarked on a most sacred task. There is a powerful message here about what constitutes a lasting legacy as opposed to fleeting fame. Legacy has nothing to do with one's name and everything to do with one's impact. Rabbi Sacks was widely acclaimed, but the measure of his greatness is in the countless lives he enriched, as well as the timelessness of his wisdom. One of Rabbi Lord Sacks's brilliant original thoughts relates to history, for which there is no word in the Hebrew Bible. Rather, the word zachor is used, which means memory. He explained that history is his story, an account by another person about events which happened to others. We recall it and study it, but we feel disconnected. Memory is quite different. We internalize it, carry it with us, and make it a part of our future. Rabbi Sacks is now not only a part of our shared history, he will also live on in our collective memory. As ever, he himself put it perfectly. Mortality, he said, is written into the human condition, but so too is the possibility of immortality in the good we do that continues long after we are here to beget further good. There are lives that defeat death and redeem existence from tragedy. It is from Rabbi Sacks's own words that we can be certain that his remarkable voice will continue to be with us always.
Thank you and bless you.
So that tribute was made by Chief Rabbi Mervis, who spoke to this morning on
Yes, I heard it live on the Thought of the Day.
Fourth of the Day on BBC 4. He was a giant. Rabbi.
He was. And everybody is, if you look on social media, the past 2 days, every single friend I've got on Facebook, that's all they're posting.
Yeah,
and that will continue for a long time. His legacy will move on, as Rabbi Mervis mentioned. He will live on. He was a giant.
Through his teachings. I mean, a lot of my shiurim are based on his works.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing to be able to have that source of intellectual knowledge available to us.
It's amazing. I mean, when I first started the rabbinate 10 years ago, did the explanatory service, and most of my material came from him. So I do consider myself a pupil.
He's touched so many, not only in Anglo Jewry, but we know across the world, and not only in the Jewry, but in the secular and general world as well, as the many tributes came out to him from Prince Charles to the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he will be sorely missed. And our condolences and love go to Lady Elaine and the entire family. We wish you all much strength.
Amen.
Tonight.
So here we are with Norris Lee TV, Season 2, Episode 9. And coming up on tonight's programme, we mark the 82nd anniversary of Kristallnacht tonight on the 9th of November. We will hear from Rabbi Livingstone, marking the AJEX Shabbat. We will be learning about Mitzvah Day, and we will also be celebrating 2 bar mitzvahs in our community this week.
Quite a busy schedule up there, right? So we start with Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht. So
your grandmother came shortly after that, right?
She did. So my grandmother lived in a place called Kristallnacht, which is about an hour and a half north of Frankfurt. We went there with my family last year to tour the place. My grandmother wouldn't come with, but she was happy for us to go. And we found some kvarim of her grandparents not far from there. And the mayor of the city, of the town rather, in Kristallnacht, came with us on our, with myself, the cousins, uncles, quite a large group, must be about 25 of us all together. He wanted to join because of the history in their town, like most German cities where these horrific events took place. He showed us the site where the shul used to be. It's marked with a plaque. And there's a beautiful Jewish cemetery there, like in the middle of the road. The road forks off in the middle of the Jewish cemetery, very beautifully preserved.
It's interesting, they don't touch that. It's some cities.
The mayor told us that the local school, which is actually the school my grandmother went to, it's still there, did a whole exhibition. Every year they come there to cut the grass. So they maintain it, they look after it, and we found the graves of ancestors. Obviously very special and emotional. We davened there, we said the memorial prayer, we said Tehillim, and we all put a little stone on the Matzeva. Later on, he came with us to show to the house where my grandmother lived. She ended up leaving on the kinder transport a few months later, but her parents sadly were sent to Auschwitz. And he went back to the town hall, and he addressed us all. He welcomed us, and he said he just had a thought. Kristallnacht is where the Nazis, particularly hit the youth, who were turned into absolute thugs, who were encouraged by the state just to be violent, throw stones, destroy. And he picked up a stone. He said, "This stone could be used to destroy, but I've just seen in your Jewish tradition that you use this stone to build. This stone can also build. You put it on the grave to mark it." He says, "Everything we do, everything we have, every character trait we've got, every object, everything we have at our disposal could be either used for good and for bad. And our history has shown, in the history of our town, that we've used it for bad. Now it's time to build." It's actually an inspiring message. He doesn't realise it's been written a couple of hundred years ago by the Chovos HaLevavos as well, who write the same thing. He said he's just had this thought. But it's so true, we can choose to use our tools, to use our gifts, our talents, and anything we've got, for good or for bad. The choice is ours. We have that free choice.
That's right. And that's why it's important to remember days like today.
Yeah, it's important to mark it.
And
we owe it to that generation, particularly to those who never made it out. This is why we always mark Yom HaShoah, etc. We do Poland trips. It's every day, really. It'll always come in,
So Rabbi Friedman has a few words on Kristallnacht as well. We'll go over to Rabbi Friedman.
Tonight is Kristallnacht, the night that will be remembered forever in history, as the moment the world undeniably knew about Nazi anti-Jewish racism and stood idly by. The night that Hitler realized that he could annihilate the Jewish people and no nation would lift a finger. We remember the 267 synagogues destroyed and 7,000 Jewish businesses attacked and looted. And of course, we remember that Kristallnacht was the first step towards the genocide of 6 million Jews, along with Roma homosexuals, the disabled, and the dissidents. This year, Kristallnacht sadly has particular resonance, as we watch with tears in our eyes as thugs smashed windows and looted innocent businesses, all in the name of a higher cause. What began as a peaceful protest by good people, marching against police misconduct and the death of an innocent man, turned into an ugly display of mankind's worst inclinations. Those riots culminated with the destruction of monuments around the world. On this occasion, it was not encouraged by the authorities and it did not lead to a Holocaust. But it did teach us a very important lesson. People care and pay attention to monuments. People know that monuments have meaning and monuments determine the values of a nation. It is now crystal clear to us that an integral element of preventing a future Holocaust is the construction of the Westminster Holocaust Monument with immediate urgency. A leader of the community recently stood up and declared that we don't need a monument, that we should put the money into education. What this well-meaning individual failed to understand is that Nazis and anti-Semites are not interested in being educated about the Holocaust. Those on the path of devastation are not interested in reasoned discussion and debate. They seek only to ransack and destroy. That's why a monument, and yes, it will probably require round-the-clock security like the Holocaust monument I built in Canada, is the most important thorn in the eye of the anti-Semites. And it must be built in Westminster, on the most prominent piece of land available, so that not a day goes by when those out to destroy our people are reminded that the British people stand shoulder to shoulder declaring, never again. Never again will we stand by as Jews, nay, any race, ethnic or group different in any other way are persecuted or worse yet killed. Each and every day we will wake up and remind ourselves of the horrors of Kristallnacht, the Holocaust, and the tragedy of our indifference. This incredible country, of course, was one of the few that did not turn a blind eye to Kristallnacht. Many in our community owed their lives to the subsequent miracle of the Kindertransport. The memorial will equally serve as an eternal reminder of our British values and the positive, albeit minimal, steps this nation did take to save our people. Tonight we remember Kristallnacht, and tonight we pledge to do whatever we can to rebuild the physical and material memory of our people.
Thank you, Rabbi Friedman.
This weekend also marks AJEX Shabbat.
Yes. Normally we would do something special in shul, but that ain't happening, is it?
Or on the Sunday, right? There's a huge gathering in town.
At the cenotaph.
Right.
Yeah, they can't do that either. But Rabbi Livingstone, our previous minister here, who's now the chaplain to Her Majesty's Armed Forces, meets Rabbi Friedman to talk about its significance.
Rabbi Livingstone, welcome to NLTV. It's such an honor to have you here. Former minister of Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue, and now a member of Her Majesty's Forces and keeping us safe globally. So, Rabbi Livingstone, you've joined us today in honor of Remembrance Day, which is upcoming. So thank you for being here.
It's a real pleasure and delight to join with you.
Thank you. Well, tell us a little about what it's like to be an army chaplain and a Jewish army chaplain and the history of it. You know, this is all news to most of our viewers as to Rabbi Livingstone post HGSS. Tell us a little about the journey and what you're doing nowadays.
Sure. Well, I ought to say that my main role is a tri-service role, so it's not specifically for the Army. I am notionally the senior Jewish chaplain to the Armed Forces as a whole, but that also extends to the Ministry of Defense as a civil service and to the SIS, which is MI5, MI6, and GCHQ, which are the security and intelligence agencies. I have nothing to do with them other than supporting Jewish personnel in all of those organizations. And
but of course, even if you did, you wouldn't tell us anyway. So we'll take that at face value.
I have a chaplaincy role in all of that piece, but I do interact with personnel from all of those services. And my role essentially is to support Jews in terms of their religious and pastoral needs. It's as simple as that. And some of their social needs too, because it can be very isolating.
How many Jews are there serving in Her Majesty's?
So that's the $64,000 question. People don't necessarily have to declare their faith, so they don't, as a rule, tend to identify themselves as Jews, and that goes back actually to the First World War era, where although we have 50,000 Jews notionally that are serving, not all of them identify up front as Jews, and therefore you never know the numbers exactly. And that happens in the Second World War, and that happens in the current situation. It also happens, interestingly, in the United States, in other jurisdictions. You never quite know how many Jews you're dealing with until they step forward, or until, God forbid, they get killed, or something tragic happens. And even then, if they haven't identified as Jews, you can have a serious problem on your hands. So in terms of numbers, current numbers, they tend to be small. We have an active Facebook community of about 200. So we have at least 200. I reckon we might have up to 500.
Wow.
But that's speculative, but there are quite a number of Jews who work in the intelligence field, and particularly at GCHQ, which is the intelligence hub and the great listening post and spy hub of the UK. And oddly enough, there are quite a few cyber geeks who are Jewish. They might not leave their desks, but they are certainly Jewish, and they need support in that role, and I provide that support.
Right.
In terms of the history of this chaplaincy, it's really an early outgrowth of the Victorian United Synagogue. In the mid-1800s, the Visitation Committee of the United Synagogue looked after Jewish armed forces personnel, Jewish soldiers, basically in terms of sending them packages, making sure they had rabbinic and pastoral support as required. There weren't that many of them. And oddly enough, in the Boer War, most of the officer class came from the Spanish and Portuguese congregation, not from the United Synagogue, because they were more assimilated and more likely to do that type of thing. But certainly, chaplaincy is set up formally in the 1890s, and it continues to grow until the First World War. And once you have tens of thousands of Jews in the armed forces, you need at least tens of chaplains, of rabbis, to support them and to help them. And we see the burgeoning of Jewish chaplaincy from that period. In the Second World War, there are over 30 frontline chaplains, and many more who are doing sort of homeland service. And of
course, we remember our predecessor, Rabbi Bornstein, Alav Shalom, who died in active duty as a chaplain during the Second World War.
That's really interesting. Harry Bornstein deployed as an active duty chaplain, and he is listed as having been killed in action, although I'm not sure he was killed in direct action. But yes, he died on active service.
So tell us about some of the challenges and complications that Jewish soldiers deal with that you are tasked with guiding them through.
Well, I have a sort of an all-encompassing role. I'm a father figure, I'm a big brother. I'm an advocate for Judaism and for Jews. So my role is as wide as it is long. One of the things that I do is that I hold Shabbatonim, largely put on hold by the current situation. And we have social get-togethers that ensure that people in disparate locations can come together physically and terrestrially and actually experience a bit of Judaism. And so we have Sifrei Torah, we have services, we have shiurim, we have guest speakers, and things of that ilk. One of the things that I do very commonly is I provide an infrastructure within British Defence on a base by base, installation by installation basis, whereby Jews can have access to Sifrei Kodesh, whereby we stock tefillin, we stock chumashim, we stock talitot, we stock kippot, things, Jewish accoutrements, and so I've done a lot of work in terms of setting up the World Faith prayer rooms, which are non-denominational, but always have a Jewish cupboard. So I don't know the stats in terms of who uses all of this, but I do know that they are used.
Who funds those?
So that's paid for by the Ministry of Defense.
Right.
It's the one instance where the Ministry of Defense purchases tefillin and mezuzot and sfarim, which I'm very proud of.
Well, they obviously know what keeps us safe.
They sort of do, and there's a lot of respect for Jews. You know, what we have to remind ourselves of is that we have paid a high price in blood over generations. And I think it's helped our citizenship in this country, this military service. It's often seen as a peripheral sort of activity, but it becomes very, very important in times of national crisis. And that's right unto this very day. Remember, Jews also did national service. There was conscription in this country until the early 1960s. Tens of thousands of Jews were conscripted. Many served in conflicts such as Korea, for instance, and in other conflicts. And so it is often better remembered outside our community in the armed forces that Jews have served than it is within our wider community. It tends to be overtaken by the advent of the State of Israel and the enthusiasm that we all have to support Tzahal and the Israel Defense Force. But we mustn't forget that the Jews have served and continue to serve in the British Armed Forces. I should say. Sorry?
Yashikov to all our young people who are serving for our country.
Yes, that's a good acknowledgement. Thank you for saying that. We also have some major generals and people who are Jewish in very senior positions. So it cuts through all services and all ranks.
Excellent. Wow. So tell me, that you must have some really extraordinary, or better put, crazy stories that you've had to deal with, getting people matzah and on the other, while they're stationed in Alaska. I mean, what kind of things do you deal with?
Okay, that's really interesting. And I cut off in terms of the previous question, and it sort of interlinks here because the Ministry of Defense produces thousands upon thousands of kosher ration packs. Although we don't have thousands upon thousands of Jews, they do this because of the economy of scale that's involved. The fact that kosher is also halal, and it's distributed to Muslims as well as to Jews. But they do this symbolically to create a home for observant Jewish people in the armed forces. And I supervise the production of these ration packs, and they're very popular indeed in the wider peace, and certainly in places like Afghanistan and on other deployments, they were used extensively by the American armed forces and by other people who were looking for kosher rations. One of the lots of stories. I mean, one is always standing up for Judaism, and sometimes against ignorance, but sometimes against a simple lack of knowledge. So, you know, I've certainly been in meetings, etc., where people have been astonished to learn, because they know nothing about Judaism, that we have Shabbat regulations, that we have Kashrut regulations, that we have Brit Milah, etc. And just to witness the wonderment in people that we Jews who live in Northwest London and at the hub of things assumed that everyone knows about, but the sheer wonderment that others have at Jewish practice is quite revelational. Changed my perspective. In terms of individual stories, goodness gracious me, I had a contact in the middle of the night from a mountaintop in Greece, where a company commander said, "I've got a Jewish soldier, and he needs to talk to you." So it turns out that he needs some means. He needs a Chanukiah. He's just woken up to the fact that it's Hanukkah in a few days' time. He's on an exercise, on a NATO exercise, in the middle of nowhere in Greece, and he needs a Chanukiah and some nerot. And if I can't provide these myself, because it was difficult, I managed to through a very convoluted communication with the American Army chaplaincy and then Jewish chaplaincy in America. We cooperate and collaborate very closely to get a Chanukiah essentially flown in specifically for this fella.
Wow.
And he had his Chanukiah, and he also had a comfort pack, including donuts and all the other essentials. So those types of things warm the heart, and they're just one by one, but it's what we do.
You were victorious with that challenge of the Greeks.
Absolutely, but you know what? These things are really disproportionately important when people are alone, when they're far from home and family. Just any little schmeck, as we say, makes a vast difference, and it can make difference to the morale not only of that soldier but of the whole unit, because he might be pivotal. He might be in a command role. If he feels good, then everyone feels good.
Now, you mentioned a number of departments that you pastor to. You didn't mention the Navy or the Air Force.
No, those are the forces that I alluded to when I said that this was a tri-service role. So that's the British Army, the Royal Air Force, and the British Navy, the Royal Navy.
Okay.
And so I minister, as it were, to all of those services and support Jews in all of those services. We have differing numbers. Most of the Jews happen to be in the Army,
okay, and
fewer in the RAF, and probably fewer still in the Royal Navy. But that's as it is. It's not a numbers game.
No, absolutely. And so you have been stationed across the world, or you're mainly located in the UK?
So I'm mainly based in the UK. I have an office at Horse Guards in Westminster, in central London, and I work very frequently out of Army headquarters at Andover and at the Army Training Regiment at Winchester in Hampshire. That being said, I've deployed all over the world in this role, and I've been to Afghanistan. I've been on training exercises to Canada on more than one occasion, to Alberta, which you might know and love, and it's a global role because the defense reach in this country, although we're small, we are definitely global. So I've been all over the world. I've been to places as disparate as Azerbaijan and Armenia on one particular trip, and I've deployed to Cyprus, and I've even been to Israel on a duty trip.
How many armies in the world have Jewish chaplains? You mentioned collaborating with the Americans. Who else also maintains full-time Jewish chaplaincy? So
the United States has over close to 40 Jewish chaplains.
Wow.
And that is a tribute to the diversity of that force. And there have been rabbis serving in the American Army since the Civil War, which is interesting. So we rely on the American connection integrally lots of resource and collaboration. Canada has a Jewish chaplain, and at any given time, often more than one. France has many Jewish chaplains, although there are very, very few, if any, Jews in the French armed forces, because the system in France is that every regional rabbi is given responsibility for military bases that fall in his region. And they're not militarized in the same way that I've gone through Sandhurst and commissioned into the army. They are civilians who work with soldiers. Germany recently has decided to hire a rabbi, but I'm not sure they've hired anyone yet. But they have a lay Jewish chaplaincy. And various other countries, I believe a couple of South American countries, including Argentina and Chile, have Jewish chaplaincy, but I don't work closely with them, so that's the extent of my knowledge. I know the Nordic countries are very Jewish friendly, although they scarcely have any Jews. I don't know whether that's a legacy of the Second World War. But that's about it. We are in the process of setting up an international Jewish chaplaincy association as we speak.
Oh, wow. And are you the sole chaplain? You mentioned you're the senior chaplain. Are there other Jewish chaplains?
There are two other Jewish chaplains in the Army Cadet Force, which is an adjunct of the Army. I'm the only serving rabbi actually in the armed forces, and I have I'm the only one with the brief to look after everyone. We're hoping to recruit more rabbis, and that's a process that takes time. It's not for everyone, this type of role.
Imagine, sure. And the amount of time, when you talk about deployment, the amount of time that you're away from Rabbi Livingstone and kids isn't easy. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do for our country. Thank you for being an inspiration to us all. Thank you so much, Rabbi Livingstone, for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing from you for Remembrance Day and AJEX Shabbat.
Thank you. It's been great to talk with you, and it's a real privilege to fly the flag of Judaism in a place other than the United Synagogue.
I will now read out the prayer traditionally recited at the memorial service, composed by Lord Sacks. Ribono Shel Olam, Sovereign of the world, who created all in love, teach us to love all that is good and beautiful in this world, not to miss all that is right whilst looking for that which is wrong. Teach us to honour the dignity of difference, recognising that one who is not in our image is nonetheless in your image. Never forgetting, whoever we are, that people like us are still people like us. At this fateful time in the human story, bless us that we may be a blessing unto others. Guide the nations of the world to honour you by honouring one another, so that by reaching out in love, we may turn enemy into friends and become your family on earth as you are our parent in heaven. Hashem ma'ayin hayisalanu b'dar v'dar, O God, who has been our refuge in every generation, may you grant your wisdom and courage to the leaders of the world, that together they may overcome forces of violence and evil, so that those who cherish life prevail over those whose way is death. Bless them and guide their deliberations, that they may lead with wisdom and justice, grace and compassion, bringing honour to your name and your blessing to humankind. Shield us, our homes and cities, from sorrow and distress, and implant a new heart and faithful spirit in all the dwellers on earth, that we may learn to live together in coexistence, not conflict, seeking one another's good, not harm, so that the days of bloodshed may end, and the sounds of grief be stilled. Can you hear us, Son? May this be your will, and let us say, Amen.
Okay, so mitzvah day.
Yes, another packed weekend. So Sunday, very busy day. Actually starts on Thursday this year.
Yeah.
And we heard from Sarah Coleman last week. And this week we interviewed David Sagel and Allison Martin on all about how we can participate with Mitzvah Day. Welcome, David Sagel, to Norris Lee TV. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So, David, you are here representing Mitzvah Day. How did you get involved, and what exactly, in particular, is your department?
Right. Yes, I've been involved with Sarah Coleman for over many years when I was working for the shul, and specifically this year with Mitzvah Day is because I've been volunteering for the last 6 months with a charity called Goods for Good.
Can you tell us a little bit about Goods for Good? I mean, is that similar to All Aboard? You know, we know that a lot of people, drop things, we're emptying their closets over lockdown, and now we have lockdown too. Might have the same effect. So how's that different than the other local charities that are accepting goods?
It isn't. We're all giving to the same type of organizations. We're giving to the charities, the homeless, wherever we've got hooks into them. Goods for Goods has been around for about 6 years. A good proportion of that has been sent out to Eastern Europe and to Israel and to other countries where we've been packing all the clothes up, and we've got a good transportation communication system to Europe, and we get all of the stuff out to people that need it there. This year, because of the COVID, we've had to look inward into trying to get things out to people in England, and we've had more SOS calls from England, from refugees, from homeless, and so we very much like all the other communities. We get in clothes, we sort them, and we make sure that they go to the right people. So, for instance, we've got volunteers. Everything is run on volunteers. We have volunteers who come in, sort all the bags of clothes out into men's, women, children's stuff, boys and girls, and we try and sort out what is nice stuff, because if we want to give people the respect that they need, of not just giving them dirty clothes or worn out clothes, we fold them all up, we give them in a nice way, so it feels to them that there's someone who cares. We've had volunteers because a lot of people were on furlough. We had people collecting clothes for us, taking them the clothes, hygiene stuff that we'd been given, foods that we've been given, and giving it out to the housing organizations, to the homeless charities, wherever we've got connections, and working with other charities that have been checked out and made sure that they're okay. So here, this time round, we've had large amounts of volunteers, quite a few actually from the suburbs. Some of the children I saw growing up here are now volunteering. They were driving around, collecting things, and it makes everyone feel good. We feel good having donated something. The volunteers feel good because they're doing something for good, for chesed, and actually the recipients feel good that they're getting something, and it shows that people care.
Absolutely, it's about spreading the kindness, and specifically in Barnet, you were mentioning offline there was a request. They recently had 200 refugees, was it?
Yes, 200 refugees have been taken in by Barnet. Barnet have to house them and to give them all of the legal requirements they need, the medical requirements. They've taken in 200, and all the charities are helping to provide them with additional clothing, additional medications, even hygiene stuff, shampoos, and all the things that they'll need. Bedding they're getting, because they've been putting up at the moment in a temporary accommodation, but Barnet is looking to house them all. So there's 200, that's including families, individuals. So you can imagine that a lot of these refugees have come from Calais. and they've come with just what they're wearing. So they haven't got any additional clothes. They have warm clothes and whatever, because I don't know how long they've been traveling for. They've got no hygiene stuff for cleaning themselves. They need food. They need, you know, the things that we take as for example, they require. Just to give you an example, you know, they're coming sometimes with children where they haven't got nappies, they haven't got wipes and all those type of things. The charities have been wonderful in Barnet. A lot of them that we're dealing with, Goods for Good, have been able to provide them with nappies, with wipes, with other cleaning stuff for themselves, shampoos, and also food as well. Rosalind Bluestone, who is the CEO of Goods for Goods, happened to be talking to someone who had large boxes of pasta and other foods, and we were able to make sure that those went to people who could use it, who are sort of either sort of in the poverty line, or we even shipped quite a lot of them up to Moldova, to some of the camps there. So food is being passed around, everything that they'll need. We're not, Goods for Good aren't providing a lot of the stuff, but they are providing as well, and we're getting the right hooks. So all the charities together are making sure that these refugees who are there, 200 of them, are given the basics.
Amazing, really, because, you know, they, like you said, you know, they're coming with just a shirt on their backs.
Yes, very much so.
Starting from scratch, and it's wonderful that we're able to assist in any way we can. So, mitzvah,
well, so that's exactly what we would like from this mitzvah day, is to try and collect as many warm clothes as possible. That's woolly hats, that's scarves, that's jumpers, coats, winter coats for men and women, for children, whatever you have, whatever you don't need anymore. The charity will make sure that it's given to the right people ASAP.
And so we're also helping with different charities for Mitzvah Day as well, right?
Oh, very much so. Oh, sorry, yes. So on the other side of things is that we've got quite a lot of charities involved this year, where in the past, as you heard from Sarah last week, we'd have had lots of charities coming in, all the children from the Cheder and other from the community would have come in and helped. We can't do any of that this year, unfortunately, for COVID. So we're making sure that all the charities that we're dealing with, a good example is Camp Simcha, which is very close to the heart of the suburb. Via Esther Livingstone, we're collecting second-hand jewellery, new and old perfumes and makeup that will all be shipped out to Israel to charities that she's got connections with. So they all go there. We've also got, for Africa, we're collecting reading glasses, people's old glasses. And if those are collected up, they'll be also sent out to people in Africa to be used as well.
So Yasher Koach again. And
thank you very much for inviting me in.
And continue on to do good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we are live on location for NLTV TV for Mitzvah Day, right here on Allison Martin's driveway, right? So this is where everybody's going to drop off items for Mitzvah Day?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so because of COVID this year, we're unable to use the shul. So on the 12th of November, Thursday the 12th of November, between 10 and 6, and Sunday the 15th of November, between 10 and 2, our driveway will be the drop-off point for everything. So there'll be individual buckets and boxes for you to bring whatever you're going to donate, which will be amazing. So we're collecting food for the food banks, new toys for Camp Simcha, and coats and clothes, and also reading glasses.
So there'll be different boxes for each of those items,
correct,
right? And
yes.
so they'll be clearly labeled?
They'll be clearly labeled, and there'll be people here as well to help to bring things if you need help from your car. Ideally, if you can split everything, so your clothes and the food and the toys, etc., are all separate, because we want to obviously have as least amount of contact with everything as possible.
That's right. So if you have the toys, put in one box, and then we'll have the coats
food
in another, and
correct.
food in the other.
Yeah.
And what about these masks that we're tie-dyeing? This is a new item that we're doing for Mitzvah Day.
Yeah, so we wanted to do something with the families, because obviously we're not in shul this year, so we can't all be together doing what we normally do. So we've been donated 50 masks which you can collect from me, or they can be delivered if you're local, and you will tie-dye them with your family. It comes with instructions. There's also a video that you can watch, and then you drop them back to me on the Monday, and they are donated to the Barnet Refugee Centre.
Awesome. Yes, we featured that wonderful know how to dye your own mask that Danielle Moses showed us so well, and so they're available really for anybody to just pick up.
Yep.
With 51st masks free, and so we just contact you, Alison, to get those masks done.
All my details are on the fly, my email, so you just email me, and then they come in a pack with instructions. Very self-explanatory.
And we have till Monday, I believe, to drop these off here?
Monday the 16th.
The 16th,
yes.
right. So everything starts on Thursday and all the way till Monday.
Yes.
But the actual clothes and the food items are going to be here on Sunday.
Correct.
And you know, especially during this time, I'm sure the need is great. And so anything that you can get, I'm sure will be greatly appreciated.
Whatever. We're also collecting bicycles, adults or kids' bikes. They can be any condition. If they're fairly new, they are then sold.
Digby wants to be part of this.
Always.
Get me in the video.
They're going to Project Bike. So if they're in very good condition, they are sold on, and the money then also goes to refugees. And if they're not in very good condition, then they break them down and then they'll use the parts.
Where did the bikes get dropped off here?
The bikes are being dropped off to Holne Chase, but you need to contact Hannah Summers. Her email address is on the flyer, and she can arrange a time for you to drop them off. We're also doing litter picking around the suburb in families.
Oh, that's something new as well?
Yeah, which is lovely. So a chance to get out during lockdown and go for a walk. We provide all the litter pickers and the bags and the gloves. You just again need to email Claire to arrange a time. And the other thing that we're doing is flyer dropping, which advertises the food banks and explains all about the food banks. You can do that when you're walking your dog with your one friend that you're allowed to see during lockdown.
So this is all being done on Sunday, so the litter pickup and
well, the flyer dropping you can do when you want.
We need that done beforehand.
Yeah,
so
but the litter picking is being done on the Sunday, and the flyers you just need to email and arrange to collect the flyers.
Okay, awesome. Well, Yeshe Koach for all the amazing work that you're doing. I know you have a great team, and we look forward to doing more mitzvot, and thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So the youth are getting involved as well in Mitzvah Day. You know, they couldn't stand outside Beckham's due to the new regulations, but they found other innovative way. They're going to do a Zoom mask tie-dyeing, so that's great for the refugees, and also a challah to be able to deliver as well to the homeless. So different ways that anybody, any age, can get involved in Mitzvah Day. So hopefully, you know,
and any little thing you do will to contribute to the community and the wider community. That is the mitzvah, you know.
Exactly. Like every day is Mitzvah Day, as we
said.
But
every day.
Today, you know, sometimes we need a date to give us a little a little push, to do that. And so check out the flyer to see how you can get involved. That's right. And so this weekend, this Shabbat, we know that the shul is closed, and we were last week it was shut down, and we were supposed to have Daniel Levy.
Daniel Levy's bar mitzvah should have been celebrated in the shul this past Shabbat, but instead they did it at the beginning of last week before the shul closed down.
On his actual birthday.
On his
which
Hebrew
is really
birthday.
Beautiful as well.
And then he did the laning with a private gathering here in the shul, and we're going to show you footage of that. And we meet the family as well, very inspirational family. They took it so well. You know, my first thoughts were, like I said last week, besides obviously those who are saying Kaddish, who can't come to shul now, but these poor bar mitzvah boys, you know, you spend a long time learning, and then when it comes to it, they're told so close just before. We're supposed to be called up on Thursday morning. We're told on Sunday that ain't happening, but Monday, you couldn't do either because he wasn't 13 yet.
That's right.
So you really got it from both ends.
Both ends, and so I mean, you could really see, you know, every family really testing their resilience and how the boys are able to just deal with it. Really.
Yeah, and Ryan Stock exactly the same. Ryan Stock should have been this morning in shul, and again they did a beautiful service last week, and we'll be showing you footage of that. But let's meet the Levys.
Right, well, there they are, family Levy. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Yeah, you did very well in shul last week, I have to say. It was amazing to see how well you did. What did you think, Daniel, when you heard last Sunday morning that you weren't going to be called up in shul on Thursday?
Well, at first it was very worrying because you didn't know what's happening. It was all a bit, shocking. But then we realized that we already had a Zoom planned, unlike some families who were just suddenly getting a Zoom prepared or just didn't have one at all. So that was a plus.
Amazing. Yeah.
I was going to say also, he was very lucky because he was able to have a call up at JFS on Thursday morning.
Oh yeah, you didn't know it was going to happen at first either.
Yeah, we tried getting in there, but they wouldn't allow any visitors. I said, even the father, will you not let the father in? Because, it would be nice if Paul could have gone. But they said, no, we're not allowing any extras in, which is a shame. So how did that go on Thursday morning? You've had your Aliyah. You've been called up to the Torah?
Yeah, it was nice.
Amazing. And we watched him on Zoom, and the school sent us photos and stuff.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was still wonderful.
I was able to go.
And Emma was there.
But Emma, you went as well?
Yeah.
Are you also in JFS?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay.
That's good.
Have your sister there? That's nice. Oh.
And I was going to say also just that everyone stepped up. The rabbinical team at Norrisley have been unbelievable because although Daniel's Hebrew birthday wasn't until Tuesday, which meant he couldn't have a Monday call up, we were still able to go into shul to fill in and for shacharit. So that was very special. And, I think he's really been made a fuss of by everybody. And in that respect, I don't think he's really missed out too much.
Oh, it's amazing. Did you still get a lot of presents?
Yes.
Okay. For all those watching, there's still room for more. Just saying, James, obviously it was very different from your, but how long is it since your bar mitzvah?
God, it's been 5 years. 5 years now. And 5 years from August.
And you've been in shul almost every week since, which is quite inspirational, I have to say. You take a leadership role in the youth and leading BAT. You're a family of leaders, which is something very inspirational. And but of course, we wish, on behalf of everyone, we wish you Mazel Tov. And please send our love to Paul, who I believe, unfortunately, can't be with us just now. But we send our heartfelt Mazel Tov to Paul and to Jane, of course, to Daniel and James and to Emma. And we'll have simchas. Once we reopen, the first thing we're going to do, Daniel, is call you up. You'll get your Aliyah in your shul.
Yay!
And the laning that you did do was, which you did on Zoom, we're going to show a clip of it now. It was really, really good, really professional. Who taught you?
Gershi.
Oh, wonderful. Very good. Well, he did a good job. So that was really nice. And look, I hope we can have simchas. And you know what, Daniel, when you get married, there'll be a massive wedding. Make up. Any plans at the moment? No.
Not just yet.
Not on that front yet. Yeah,
not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. A big mazel tov to you from everyone here at HGSS. And we'll see you again soon in person.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All the best.
Okay, now let's go over to see a little bit of him laying tefillin.
Daniel, you are a leader. Everybody knows that you are a leader amongst your peers.
Well, thank you, family Levy, for sharing that with us. And now let's meet the family of Levy and Stock, whose bar mitzvah would be this coming Shabbat. But like I said, they celebrated last week.
Okay, so there we see Ryan Stock together with his brother Ethan, Justin and Susan, whose bar mitzvah this week. Now last week, just before the lockdown, you were told on Sunday that you're going to be laning on Monday. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Now how did you find that, to lane it suddenly with a day's notice?
I have to try my best and keep redoing it and making everything perfect.
Well, I was there, and let me tell you, it was perfect. Well done. And Susan, how did you cope with it all?
You've got to learn to go with the flow. It was plan A, B, C, D. We don't know what plan we're on now, but I mean, we have a Romy teaching Ryan, so.
Fantastic. Well, you're in safe hands with a Romy.
Yeah, no, it was very special. It was obviously very disappointed that we weren't. He's been practicing for 9 months now to do Chaisara, and then to be told on late Saturday night that we're going into lockdown, and so that week shuls will be closed. But Ryan was strong. He was amazing. He said we're going to try to do it on Monday morning
Practice on Sunday.
Practice on Sunday, lane on Monday.
Lane on Monday.
Yeah. And he did it. I mean, there's no excuse
it.
now. In future, we need someone to lane at the youth service. I can ring you up Friday afternoon, tell him he's laning tomorrow. There's no excuse because you've proved yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure why we needed the 9 months to do that whole thing. You could have done it in 2 weeks, maybe.
It's amazing what you can do when you're up for a challenge, hey Ryan?
Yeah, and he rose to the challenge. It was actually turned out to be a really special.
It was a beautiful service with the Vromi singing and the music as well. So you wouldn't have had that on Shabbos.
No,
this is true.
So, there's always a positive in something. It was really nice with the keyboard player. It was beautiful. And we got to hear Ethan doing his Aliyah. Frankly, I see where Ryan gets it from. It's such a role model as a brother.
Rather him than from me, so that makes sense.
No, but you all took it in your stride, and it's inspirational, and which is why for the whole community, which is why we want people to see this. And I know you love a good spreadsheet. You had it all worked out, and then
all worked out. Had to revamp.
Fantastic.
But, we've got a very strong community. We've got a great community. People rally around. I sent messages last minute to people saying we were having our call-up, and they showed up. They are
Fantastic.
there to share in Simchas.
It was full. The shul was full. Yeah. With 12 hours notice, 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Fantastic. It's a credit to yourselves as well. You're obviously very popular.
Susan, can't be.
So on behalf of the entire, well done, Mazel Tov to you all, on behalf of the whole community.
Thank you.
And our colleagues here in the rabbinic team and the office team, we wish you all a big Mazel Tov, Oni Nachas, and we'll hear you again laning in shul.
Can I just give a special thank you to Mark Gould? I mean,
absolutely, he's amazing. You couldn't have done it without him.
Couldn't have done it without him. So big thank you to Mark.
Baruch atah Adonai notena tova.
Thank you, Family Stock. And on behalf of the entire community, all of us here at Norris Lee, we wish you a big Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. So thank you for joining us once again. May we continue to share simchas.
Only simchas.
Only simchas. And again,
I really mean that. It's like a cliche, only simchas, but it's so true. We've had, it's nice to have these simchas. It's been amazing. There's so much bad news as well. So have a wonderful week ahead. Look forward to seeing you at next week's episode. And that's all from us tonight.
Thank you for joining us. That's all from me.
And that's all from her. Good night.